Welcome to the Potter Blog site, May 22nd, 2013. You just saw on that previous page has been changed to cost plus. Now, that has to be one of the most strange and boring headlines we've ever posted. But to those of you in the know, changing a governmental contract from fixed price to cost plus is a sign of governmental desperation and a contractor's greatest dream. Cost plus basically means that the contractor is guaranteed a profit no matter what he or she spends to fulfill the contract. You throw in the fact that this medical Countermeasures Clinical Studies Network contract is worth $0.6 billion, and that the ancillary contracts probably bring it up to over $1 billion, and you have the very definition of the U.S. government urgently throwing money at salivating contractors. So this should give you some idea of how serious this hemorrhagic bird flu is, H7N9. It's dropped out of the media for the time being, but say if back in April or March someone had released 2 H7N9 infected pigeons in New York or LA, there would be literally thousands of dead people in those cities. That's why the government is going crazy over this stuff, spending billions of dollars and recently ordered 522 million syringes. Now, this contract, the Medical Countermeasures Clinical Studies Network contract, covers two things. I'm going to zoom in here so you can read this or see this just a little better. The first is it sets up a pre-event clinical trials of experimental emergency flu vaccines laced with adjuvants. Watch some of our other videos if you want more details on that. Two, it sets up a post-event 24-hour notice reaction squad which can perform emergency experimental treatment clinical trials on several hundred patients using investigatory antiviral agents and probably symptomatic treatments with experimental immune suppressing drugs. Now, think what this means is they're pre-setting up a team that can respond anywhere in the nation within 24 hours to give at least 200 infected people unproven experimental drugs in an effort to treat them. So for anyone who's unsure about how seriously the U.S. government is taking the threat of hemorrhagic H7N9 bird flu, the change in this contract from fixed price to cost plus doesn't alert you to the fact that the federal government thinks the situation is deadly serious, nothing short of mass death and forced vaccinations will convince you. Now, of course, none of this means that the government is right. Centralized planning seldom is ever right. But any way you look at it, there will either be a real risk from the hemorrhagic bird flu and a real risk from the government's response in preparation for that hemorrhagic flu. Three things one might consider in preparation for the next flu season outbreak are: one, what to do if you are forced to take a experimental vaccination. And one thing to research and look at, possibly in that regard, is immune system suppressing supplements. Two, chlorhexidine gluconate, aka CHG. And we've talked about this in every video we've done on this subject so far, so we're not going to get in a lot of detail. Go to the blog site. It's worth your time to see that. Three, watch the CDC strategy / budget appeal movie Contagion. Basically, this movie, and it's not a very good movie, but it's not horrible, but it's not a very good movie. But basically, this movie was written and directed by the CDC. It reminds me of some of those early World War II propaganda movies. But in essence, what it is, this movie shows you the CDC's strategy on how they would respond to basically an H7N9 emergency, and what their idea of a good response is, the things that they will do or not do, the things they will tell you or not tell you. So from that perspective, if you want to understand from a movie that was basically written and directed by the Centers for Disease Control so they could get more budget from people, and that gives out their best presentation of a perfect response to this type of situation, it's worthwhile to watch this movie.